I like reading about artists in the New York Times. It's got some interesting observations about artist expression, sort of like William de Kooning, where you could see his fingers or feel his fingers and his hands on the surface as his own form of expression. And like any expression, it's a language. And a language needs practice. In order to have that practice, you have to develop a knowledge, and then develop that knowledge, you build up on that knowledge. And how do you do that? Well, you do it by teaching. And teaching should be something that empowers the students, gives them self-confidence, so that when they come across a challenge, they would be able to feel that they can accept it and conquer it. But how do you do that? Well, you have to help students learn. You have to, like I said, build knowledge. You have to keep them interested and excited into that content, and you have to keep that content relevant with a purpose. So you can't do that without a plan. It's like anything you do without a plan. You can't be a magician, just go on stage and make something happen, or not happen, like disappear, without practice. And in order to have that practice, you need structure. And that structure is a lesson plan. What is a lesson plan? Well, lesson plans are just that, a plan. It's an organized timeline of instruction, presentation, and/or activities based on the objectives and goals derived from a standard or standards related to the content you'll be teaching. It is a structure designed to balance expectations for educational goals as well as the students' ever-changing expectations. Its success is evident if you present a challenge, but maintain engagement and/or interest in the activity. What? You have no plan? Well, you're going to run out of content and ideas, and next thing you know, you're going to experience an unmanageable classroom because there's nothing for them to do. But if you can come up with ideas on the spot, you're just wasting everybody's time. You need to come up with a foundation for the period. You need to set goals and expectations. You need to be prepared with materials, resources, references. You need a way to assess the class.
So I'm what you call a career changer. During the day, I got a full-time job, and at night I'm taking this program so I can earn my teacher's certificate. So I don't have access to any kind of educational facility or school where I can watch teachers take their lessons, expand it, unfold in front of students to maintain their interest or engagement, watch them learn. But during one of the activities of this program, I came across a video of a teacher in Johnston, Iowa. She teaches English. The activity was about classroom structure, how the room is arranged with desks and how it flows and how it can actually get students to learn. But it wasn't that got me. It was more about her lesson plan and how she delivered it and got the students engaged. So let's check that out instead.
Hi, I'm Sarah Brown-Wessling.
She's the teacher I was describing.
Today I got to see the power of a student-centered discussion when I gave that discussion over to my students and we learned about Flannery O'Connor together. One of the great challenges of the classroom is being able to figure out how to manage and monitor and sustain
This is where she introduces the lesson.
For an entire
the night
class.
before, the students are required to read the story.
Last night, my 12th grade English students read Flannery O'Connor's A Good Man is Hard to Find. Today, our goal is to kind of make sense of Flannery O'Connor, make sense of what doesn't make sense. First of all, you saw me establishing the learning goal of the day.
All of this
going to get out a piece of paper, scratch paper. So after students do their own writing, center their thinking, I always want to know what they thought. Well, first of all, what did you think?
So impressive.
She's amazing!
No. What?
Being able to sustain that kind of dialogue in which you have students listening to each other, building on what each other says, instead of it just being a popcorn, or that it bounces off of me entirely, those are things we want to avoid. And I think today you would have seen students moving beyond that.
It doesn't make him bad, it just makes him off-center from what she is.
So we just experienced one of the Common Core standards that she's trying to work with, which was speaking and listening. And then she goes on with textual evidence, where she asks for a when, which will help deepen the discussion.
Talk that out for me.
She always wants to be the center of attention, no matter what it is. She's always making random comments.
Give me some specific examples from the text. When does Grandma do this? Tess?
I thought just the fact that she brought the cat with her, saying, oh, my son doesn't care about the cat.
What else does she do? What else does she say?
They don't even really give her that much attention, but she keeps on going on.
Though one of the goals is to actually have a student-centered design where the students are working on their speaking and listening skills, she pulls it in with a focus question, which is one aspect of her lesson, is to stop the discussion and then make sense of it all.
I kind of want to try to pull it together a little bit. First of all, I want to tell you a couple of things about Flannery O'Connor. When I kind of realized we were at this fulcrum point in the discussion, I took the focus lesson, which is traditionally at the beginning of a lesson, and instead I embedded that about 2/3 of the way through. Do you know what the definition of grace is? One of the points that I really wanted them to consider was, who is the instrument of grace? And it's a wonderful point with this story because it's pretty ambiguous. You could really make a really solid argument that it was either of the main characters. Grace is unearned mercy. I think it gave them a concrete entrance into the text.
Finally, she talks about how she prepares for this lesson, where she will become a participant, where she writes her own questions and answers that will help guide as well as maybe move the discussion along, or even maintain it if there's any lag.
Prepare as though you're coming to be a participant. Go ahead, write down your questions, but spend time writing your own response. What do you think?
Because she was well prepared for the day, it turned out to be a lesson that was actually engaging, and she enjoyed it.
If they're still talking or still asking questions when they leave, or they come in the next morning and they say, I was thinking about this, that's when I know we've done really good work.
So I have here a lesson plan from a teacher here in New York State. Her name is Angela Langston, and she teaches at the Sleepy Hollow High School. This assignment is Word as Image, which is designing with typography. It does have basically the expectations that students will be able to read and refer to as they work in the assignment. It has the big idea and the objectives, as well as the assessments. The overall thing requires positive and negative space usage, as well as some other art vocabulary, which will be color, rhythm, and patterns. And it will require some 21st century experience using current industry technology. And the results, she also showed me some of the results. One of them was basically just a exact copy of what you see right here. She explained that was a student that did have a hard time understanding and grasping what art was and design. And then there was another one who actually created her entire self-portrait with her own typography. So you can see there was a big gap or range of experience. So that was very interesting to see how that lesson, this lesson right here, came to fruition.
So now we come to the moment of meditative reflection. What is a lesson plan? Well, a lesson plan basically should consider standards that are needed for a student to learn a particular objective. It should define those objectives. It should also provide students some expectations so they know what they're going to be learning. You also need to outline the activity, consider the time frame that you're going to do this lesson in. You also have to consider the materials, the resources, the references. All of that you're not going to be able to pull out of thin air. It needs to set the plan for the day as well as the days that we're going to follow. How are you going to deepen this knowledge and expand on it? And also needs to allow for any other assessments, such as how are you going to differ the lesson for certain students on how they're going to experience it. Some may be able to grasp it really quickly. Some may need a little extra help. You also need to allow time for anything that's just going to fall apart. How are you going to deal with that? You need to plan your backup plan. So in conclusion, if you have no plan, you're not only hurting yourself emotionally from the stress of trying to teach on the spot, or mentally from the strain of just thinking on the spot, or even professionally for the lack of organization, you're mostly hurting the educational development of the students who rely on you to be engaged. So don't let them down. Give them a lesson plan.